Back in January, I told myself to read a stack of Scottish books because I live in Scotland now and I bloody love it here. And I didn't end up reading all of those books, and that kind of bugged me. So in February, I set myself the goal of actually sticking to the stack of books that I talk about in these videos. And I more or less did. Everything that I hoped to read in February, I read, and I had a really good time with it. This month is a little bit different again. I've got a few review copies to read, really exciting books coming your way in March that I want to show you and talk about, as well as a few review copies from February that I didn't get to because I only have so much time on my hands. And also a few books from my TBR that have been sitting there for ages and I'm finally ready to tackle them. So again, this is kind of a mishmash. Here's everything I'm hoping to read in March, including books coming out in March that I really want to read and review and I think you'll be interested in as well. Realizing how stressed I make myself by doing all of this has clued me in on my own mental health and what I perceive as stress. And that's one of the reasons I have a therapist. And that is why I'm very happy that this video is in paid partnership with BetterHelp. I am very aware of my own brain these days. I never used to be. It took me a long time to figure out that I have anxiety, that I have ADHD, and that I have gender dysphoria. All of those things came with time. And having my own BetterHelp therapist has really helped me along on that journey of understanding myself, my past, my traumas, my childhood. All of that has come to life and I've been able to tackle it, understand it, break it down, and come to terms with it all. And it has made me a stronger, better, more dynamic individual. I am incredibly grateful to my BetterHelp therapist for all the work we have done together. And if you think that you would benefit from therapy, as I absolutely have, you can go to betterhelp.com/willowtalksbooks. The link is in the description, and you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp. With BetterHelp, you can choose to have your therapy in a few different ways, as a series of text messages, as a phone call, or as a video call. I'm very much a face-to-face kind of person, so I chose a video call and it's been going great. When you sign up, the very first thing you do is fill out a really detailed questionnaire about yourself, and this allows BetterHelp to pair you with a therapist who best suits your personal needs. This pairing usually happens within 48 hours of you signing up, and that was true for me. So if you would like 10% off your first month of BetterHelp therapy, visit betterhelp.com/willowtalksbooks. The link is in the description. Now, I said at the beginning that I didn't manage to get to every review copy I wanted to cover in February, so I'm going to be doing that this month, I hope. Luckily, there's only 2 of them. The first is this, The Kamogawa Food Detectives. It's a Japanese novel by Hisashi Kashiwai, translated into English by Jesse Kirkwood, and I mentioned it in this video but in February's version of this video. I was excited to read it, but I just didn't find the time, so let's course correct and get this read and reviewed in March, hopefully. I'm not going to go over it again because I mentioned this a month ago and I haven't actually read it yet, but a wholesome Japanese novel with a mystery element really sounds like something I need right now. I'm currently making my way through some pretty hefty history books, and I know I'm going to need something like this on the other side. It will be there for me, I will read it, I will review it, and I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. The other book that I didn't read and review in February because I ran out of time was this, Dee Dee's Umbrella. This is written by Korean author Hwang Jun-gun and translated into English by E. Ye-won. If I'm being brutally honest, the reason I didn't get to read and review this in February is because it was sent to me quite late, like a few days before the book actually was published. Tilted Axis sent it over and I was excited to read it, but I had a plan laid out for the books that I was going to read and review and I couldn't slot this in, so let's get this read in March. I'm very, very excited for it because I read a lot of Korean books in translation, but also because this is a genderqueer novel. Apparently, it's a pair of novellas. Our protagonist is a non-binary Korean gig worker living in Seoul. And as far as I understand, these 2 novellas are interconnected. They make a greater whole, hence why they are one book. I've seen some glowing reviews of this, and I'm really happy that Tilted Axis have brought it to English. Anyone who knows my channel knows that I read a lot of queer fiction, obviously, and a lot of Korean fiction, so I really need to check this out. I don't want to miss the hype, I don't want to miss the train, so look out for my review very soon. I just mentioned that I'm currently making my way through a few hefty history books, and one of them is this, The The Language Puzzle. This is written by Stephen Mithen. It's not out just yet. I think it comes out on the 7th of March. And I was sent this review copy by Profile Books. Thank you to them. It came at such a good time because I'm reading some history books right now. And so my plan is to make a little video of a few history books that I've read, including this review copy. I am so excited to read this, because I am not a professional linguist, but I am someone who's pretty obsessed with linguistics. I love learning about etymology, I love the history of language, and I have studied multiple languages as I've lived in many places and taken a vested interest in their languages, and of course their translated fiction as well. I've never become fluent in a language, and that always bugs me, because I love linguistics so much. I've read a bunch of non-fiction books about linguistics. I've got a whole article about language books on the Books and Bow website, and this will be joining that list. This is a book about the history, the development of human language. I'm so excited to read this. When I saw it was a thing, I immediately reached out to Profile. I was like, I need this, please send it to me. And my friend Angie did. Thank you so much to them. This is gonna be good. This is gonna be so good. A book that I've been hyped for all year so far is this, A Woman of Pleasure by Kyoko Murata. Translated into English by Juliet Winters Carpenter, this is easily one of my most hyped Japanese books of 2024, and it comes out this month. Footnote sent me this review copy, and I'm so giddy to be reading this. I'm just going to read you the blurb. The year is 1903, and tenacious and spirited Aoichi is sold to the most exclusive brothel in Kumamoto, Japan, becoming the protege of Shinonome, the oiran, or highest-ranking courtesan. Through Shinonome's teachings, 15-year-old Ichi begins to understand the intertwined power of sex and money. Education for a courtesan extends beyond the art of seduction, and as Ichi is taught to read and write, she develops a voice that refuses to be dampened by the brothel's rigid hierarchy. Oh, I'm so excited to read this. A kind of screw the patriarchy, screw the system book about a sex worker in Japan in 1903. My god, if I read one book this month, if I review and make a video about one book this month, it'll be this. I can't wait. And the last brand new book coming out in March that I have to review is this, Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. Last year, Grace Curtis wrote this, Frontier, a book that I made a video about a little while ago now. It wasn't perfect and I had some issues with it, but overall this is a wonderfully original piece of science fiction. And I was really flattered by the fact that Grace reached out to me personally on Twitter. I don't check Twitter that often anymore, so I'm really glad I picked up on this DM, but she got her publisher to send me this book and I can't wait to review it. Now the blurb actually calls this the Grand Budapest Hotel in space. I am thrilled by that description because the Grand Budapest Hotel is easily my favourite Wes Anderson film, so I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Grace Curtis is clearly a special voice in science fiction, writing some very original stuff, and I think I'm going to have a blast with this. However, telling that Twitter story has just reminded me of something I completely forgotten, and no, I'm not going to call it X. I got another message on Twitter from Stuart Turton. I'm a big fan of Stuart Turton, and his newest book comes out in March as well. I'm currently waiting for a review copy to arrive, which Stu said he was going to send me. I will never get used to the fact that I sometimes get messages from authors whom I completely idolize, but it's fucking awesome. I just called him Stu. I think he watches my videos, so Stu, if you're watching this, I am cringe. Last month I read one horror novel, and I needed it for my system. I needed it for my soul. Horror holds a very special place in my heart, and even though I've been obsessing over YA fiction and science fiction recently, I always need a little top up. Just a little bit of horror to keep me going, to keep my joints oiled. So I read Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison in February, and it was a lot of fun. This month I'm planning to read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I have read one Stephen Graham Jones book before, which was My Heart is a Chainsaw. I thought that was a lot of fun. A very clever, almost meta piece of slasher thriller fiction with a very autistic coded Native American protagonist. But The Only Good Indians is probably his most famous and celebrated work, and I've had it on my TBR for quite a while. I actually picked this up in Amsterdam at the American Book Center, and horror fans really love this book in particular. Like, Stephen Graham Jones is a very successful horror author, but it's this book that often stands out. So I'm finally going to read it this month. Now, I do this video at the start of every single month, and it should be clear by now that it is in no particular order. None of this is rigid. I might not even get to some of these books. But that is very much proven by this, which I'm planning to read very, very soon. Or I should actually say reread, because I've read this book before. This is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, a book which needs no introduction. It is one of the most beloved and celebrated works of science fiction of all time. I read this book like 7 or 8 years ago. I loved it, but I'm a lot smarter now than I was back then, so I'm sure I'm going to appreciate this on a few more levels. I asked my patrons to vote on the next science fiction book for me to revisit. I'm kind of itching to reread Dune because I'm going to watch Dune Part 2 soon, and I've got a few others that I want to reread, but they voted for this. I won't say any more. Everyone knows what The Left Hand of Darkness is, but I'm really, really excited to reread it this month. Another book I'm planning to read early in this month is this. This is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. About 2 years ago, S.T. Gibson wrote this, A Dowry of Blood, which I did a video on. I really loved this book, a very, very sexy vampire novel about the brides of Dracula. And now we have this. This book came out a few weeks ago and I went and grabbed it. An Education in Malice is a dark academia novel set in modern day Massachusetts, and apparently it's a kind of retelling of Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. I haven't read that book in quite a while now. I should really reread it. It's very short and I think I have it around here. But anyway, I could really do with some dark academia right now, and S.T. Gibson is amazing. This is going to be fun. Expect a video on it very soon. This is a book that I actually started in February and ended up putting down. I'm not going to say I DNF'd it because I read like 20 pages, but I realized I had other stuff that needed to take priority and I didn't have time to read it, so this month I'm going to return to it and hopefully finish it. Some Desperate Glory is a science fiction novel by Emily Tesh. It started off really, really strong, really fun, with a kind of YA vibrancy to it that I really enjoyed, and it has been praised as a massive and exciting, thrilling space opera. I am so excited to actually sit down and read this book. I was reading it on a train in and out of Edinburgh from Glasgow. I was loving it, and then as soon as I got home I was like, no, I have other stuff I need to focus on. I can't read this right now. It's a little bit thick, it's a little dense. So let's see if I read it in March. Speaking of Edinburgh, this is set there, and I bought it there. I think. Yeah, I got this from Lighthouse Books. This is Immortality, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. It is a direct sequel to Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. I did a video on this book. I loved it. I thought it was incredible. It's a kind of YA gothic romance inspired by Frankenstein, my favorite novel. And this is a direct sequel. I waited for this to come out in paperback so that they would match. However, they still don't, because this is glossy and this is matte, and I really wish this was matte as well. But that is such a nitpick. Especially when you look at these covers and realize that they are women in dresses that look like hearts and brains. I fucking love this design. I picked this up a few months ago now and planned to read it immediately. I didn't. Life got in the way, blah blah blah. Hopefully I'll read it this month. Let's find out. That is what I'm planning to read in March. Let's see how closely I stick to this. As always, things could change. There are a few books here that I absolutely will read, guaranteed. A Woman of Pleasure I will be reading and reviewing. The new Stuart Turton if it arrives. The Language Puzzle I'm just about to start. An Education in Malice I can't wait to read. And I'll definitely be rereading The Left Hand of Darkness because my patrons voted on it and it's time to reread it. So definitely look out for videos on those. The rest are up in the air because I'm me, I have ADHD, and I don't even know how I was going to finish that sentence. Subscribe for books.